Tuesday of 2022. And we're starting off with our best guest to start the year off right. So I'd like to welcome everyone. Say hello to Paul.
And hello, Paul. So, what a buildup. Glad to be the best guest of the year at this point, at least, right?
So far.
It's like when they say best movie of the year and it's only February. So
exactly.
I am the best. I'm going to keep that title for a week. So
it's all going to be downhill from here.
For me. Yeah.
Yeah. So Paul, you've quite the background and quite the experience, and it looks like your extreme expertise in SEO, and that's one of the things that we were really excited to talk to you about today. So maybe just to kind of kick us off, do you mind telling us a little bit more about yourself and maybe a little bit about your experience in SEO?
Yeah, sure. So a little bit about my background. Actually, I come from 27 years of insurance IT background, corporate work, getting systems to talk to each other, share data, and do all that kind of stuff. Went to school, Rochester Institute of Technology, computer science. So it's always been fun playing around with computers and data and that kind of thing. Once Al Gore invented the internet, right, I kind of jumped on board with that and started playing around with that, building websites, seeing how they worked. And then I remember the phrase e-commerce was first starting, right? The idea that people can buy stuff online. And at this point, there's still, I don't know if you remember, there were actually literal physical books that were published as directories. So this predates Yahoo and the search engines, where if you wanted to find a website, you would have to look it up in a book and hope that you made that publication. Well, obviously, once the search engines all came out, that changed everything, because now people want to be found in the search engines. So when I left my job, the corporate life, and by that point, my company Digital Maestro was formed. We're already building websites, getting them indexed, doing all the things that need to be done with for SEO, as well as content management and just everything else that goes with it. We really started to dig into to make sure that client sites would get found, because that's the name of it, right? What's the joke? What's the best hiding place on the internet? Page 2 of Google.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, even scrolling down, even if it's not in your front, I'm guilty of that.
Yeah. So just playing the game of the search engines, and I should elaborate by saying playing the game. It's always just learning what they're doing and the changes in the algorithm and what's new, staying on top of that, avoiding, the shaky things, the loopholes that get blasted away the next time there's a Google update.
Yeah.
And so it's all about legitimacy. I always tell people right away when they say, "Oh, how do I get better rankings when I'm writing the article?" I said, well, step one is always just write for people. Make sure you have great content. So that's kind of, I guess, my backstory and where I came from. We've got clients coast to coast and in 6 different countries.
That's amazing.
And it's what we're doing.
You actually hit on a couple of the main points I wanted to ask you about. I mean, the first thing I was going to ask you about is that proactiveness about getting out ahead of these changes. I mean, I know that the algorithms are changing constantly. I almost feel like Google changes it like once or twice a year. But maybe it's more than that. Is there anything you could do to kind of get ahead of this stuff? Or is it kind of like black box and then it happens and everyone has to react to it as best as possible?
It's a little bit of yes to everything.
Okay.
Right? So standard tried and true things, as I mentioned, definitely have good content, have things that people want to know about in your niche. When it comes to websites, we could talk about this all day, right? There's search engine optimization for e-commerce. So when somebody's selling things, they have all kinds of product. That's a whole unique type of SEO per product, because things change in the way the URLs and things work, versus somebody who's, the local hardware store. They may not be selling online. Maybe you can order things and, there's some interaction that way, but they're mainly, content oriented, to a local contractor, a roofer, one of the trades, or even if it's a business coach, right? The SEO for them is is also going to be bottom line, come up with good content. You want things that people are going to read. You want things that people go, ooh, this is good to link to.
Yeah.
Right. So that's one of the signals in Google's algorithm when they see a lot of people are linking to your website that are relevant. Right. It's not just getting all the backlinks. It's not, doing things like that. So when people say, oh, we can get you, there's services out there, get 500 backlinks in 24 hours. Google kind of knows that that doesn't naturally happen.
Yeah.
Right. So when they see all of a sudden, boom, 500 links, and they're from non-related entities or markets, they go, wait, something's up with this. And that's when you get the slap. And that's not a good thing.
Okay. Couple warnings and then some serious, I guess,
Yeah.
implications come from that.
Yeah. When it comes to the changes, Google is in the business of providing relevant content, right? That's the main thing. So they want to come up with, when you're searching for, I don't know, 18th century ceramics, right? Somebody wants that, right?
Which is top of my list. I mean,
I'm sure it was, right? To add to your new collection you got for the holidays, perhaps.
Right. Of course.
Right? You really want to dig in. So when somebody's searching for something like that, Google's job is they want to give you results that they feel are relevant to who you are and what you've done and all that kind of good stuff. Yeah. So they're going to present information that they think based on what you've looked at in the past too, right? That's where the whole cookies and the browsers and the history comes into play. They're going to provide you with results. Now, if you go, they provide you with, we'll just call it website 1, page 3. And you go to that, you go, not really it. Let me go back to Google and search for it again. You hit the back button, right? They realize they did not do a good job of presenting you the results that they thought that you wanted. So they go, okay, well, that's probably not something good. So they make a note of that for that first website. And then they kind of track. Google is the big brother, right? So they're tracking on this, they're keeping track of all of that. So they know this stuff. So Google wants people to know what makes the things relevant. Now, with all the different algorithms that they have and the indicators for what will rank higher, they don't initially announce what that is, but they hint at that. They have their Google experts who, in the space of SEO, talk to people, they let things out. They may not let a whole lot out of the bag, but they hint at things. And you kind of got to read between the lines for what these hints are to figure out what they are in order to stay a little bit proactive. Gotcha. When they do have one of those big ones that happens once a year or twice a year, that's when people go, oh boy, look what happened. And then you get in reactive mode.
Okay. Gotcha. So you're at a little bit of a double expertise here because you also build websites, which you touched on a little bit. So as far as like building the websites go, how do you approach building a website with all of the SEO in mind? Because I can speak from my personal experience. I don't know any SEO. When I attack a website that I want to build, it's probably through a much different lens than how you do it.
Yeah. So building a site, there's two components to it. One is the architecture and the infrastructure of how it's being built, right? And there's so many different ways you can build a website. WordPress is probably the most popular one on the internet today. But there's also things like, some of the more commercial ones, Wix and Weebly. People are still building what I call old-fashioned HTML sites or ASP.NET, right? There's just so many different ways to build a website. Some of them have really good infrastructures to handle that SEO. So you can just plug in the right words.
Gotcha.
Right? If it was that easy, just plug in the right words and boom, you're at number one.
Yeah.
But it certainly makes it a lot easier to do that than some other platforms. So that's number one, is taking a look at what the method of their platform development is. And then the next thing is, as you're writing, you need to keep in mind kind of what those signals are for the SEO. There's really kind of, and again, we could talk about this all day. There's two main factors with SEO. There's on-page SEO and off-page SEO. So off-page is what happens to your site when they're not on your site. So those are things like the backlinks that I talked about before, getting people to link to you. On pages, how you organize your content. And then specifically, are you using things, those keywords, for example, are they in the text? Are they styled the proper way, right? Are they headings or subheadings?
Interesting.
And different things like that. So knowing those things and keeping that in mind as you're writing the content, as you're building a website is important. And those also have to be kept going as you're adding new content. SEO is not a set it and forget it kind of thing, because your website should not be a set it. I guess if your website is set it and forget it, which is not good, then yeah, your SEO is done, but Google will come to your site and go, oh, nothing's happened here recently. Maybe it's just, growing weeds. Maybe they've abandoned it. Who knows? Even if it's still 100% relevant, you need to add that content and make it up to date.
I'm just thinking to myself as you're talking, every website I go to is constantly changing. I mean, even banking websites are constantly getting new features or new security measures or a new UI. And so you're right. You got to keep living and breathing. So go ahead.
I was just going to say, speaking of banking, it used to be unheard of for bank websites, financial institutions, to have content on it. But now they're adding all those articles, helping their customers, their consumers, explaining things. And that's, number one, it's good business for their clients to disseminate this information, but it's also a great way to stay ranked in the search engines.
Right. Yeah, it's good. And from a consumer perspective, I mean, you want to feel that your bank is looking out for you and educating you along the way. And they probably got me to open up a new account too at some point down the road. So it's interesting you mentioned like the Wix and those kind of sites. I feel like a lot of people need a website, whether you have an idea, you have a small business, website's the first thing that kind of, people go to, and that's your presence. What would you say to someone that's looking to build a website for the first time? Can they rely on one of these kind of pre-published sites? Should they be talking with someone? What's like the steps that someone should take to really find out what website they need and how to go about it?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, those can be akin to the religious debates, because you talk to certain people and they say, no, you should never do it this way. You always did it this way. And, people get passionate about it.
Yeah.
So my viewpoint is, and from our company, we do not build on those proprietary commercial platforms like Wix, Weebly, Squarespace.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that they're bad. It just means that, for the type of results that our clients want, for the SEO, for, the layout, for the design, for doing basically whatever they want to do, those sites can't do it. A lot of them can be customized a bit, but there's usually a spot where you kind of hit the ceiling of how much refinement you can do, and you're stuck. Plus, if you want to change from one of those, like I said, it's a proprietary system. You can't simply just export and put your content someplace else in most cases. With that said, if somebody's needs fit into what they provide, it's generally going to be a faster, low cost barrier to entry, and they can get started. Plus, they can do it themselves. Right. So that's really what I think the benefits are for them. They also do have a lot of functionality built in. For example, a shopping cart, or automatically just starting on day one with a whole store experience. If you upload images and prices, I mean, that's great.
Yeah.
Right. So that's something can be done. However, for most people, and again, it depends on what they're looking to do, they can either outgrow it, or they're stuck with sort of the templates that are provided. But it is a viable solution.
Yeah.
So it really depends on the needs of the person.
I agree with you a lot. I mean, my experience has kind of been you outgrow it pretty quickly. And even like things, again, not insulting any of those sites because they're great, but even things of like, you want your heading maybe slightly over to the right, but the way that the template's structured, your heading is where your heading is. So you can't, so then you're like putting in spaces or something, or tab to get it over. And then messes up the mobile experience.
Yeah, the responsive is not going to be good. And
Right.
with other ones, like WordPress, it's free to install. It doesn't cost you anything, but there's still costs associated with it.
Yeah.
Plus, if I needed my house painted, I could do it myself.
Yeah.
And it will probably look like I did it myself.
Right.
Right. So there's a lot of websites that are out there that people have created on their own in what, just call it platform X. And you go, oh, nice attempt. A for effort. But the professionality, is that a word? The professionalism of the site. Maybe not so much. But, I applaud you for doing that. And really, when people come to me and say, hey, here's my website. What do you think? I go, it's a great start.
Right.
Like you said, Jonathan, people need a website probably for almost anything that they're doing. And sometimes where it fits as far as how it looks, that's a whole scale and range in itself.
So that from a creative standpoint, does it help if somebody comes in with an existing website, like say hey, I built this for myself on Wix. It's been doing okay for a year. Can you make it better? Or is it typically better if someone comes in fresh and says, here's all of the functionality and designs that I'd be looking for. Go ahead and start from scratch. Like, I'm wondering if these build out sites are maybe a starting point, or do they sometimes cause more harm than good?
That's a great question. So, if somebody has an existing website, it usually means that they're aware of what they want to do. Right? We work with a lot of people who are just starting their business. And in that case, it's really kind of speculation of where they're going. Yeah. So we'll build it, according to the dream and the plan of where they're going. And then, within a couple of years, typically it's time to redo it because they thought they were starting it, or they're starting in A, they thought they're going to B. In fact, they really evolved and they went to C.
Right.
Nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
But that's what it is. Plus, websites, kind of like fashion, right? They're always changing through the years. So you can look at a website and go, this looks a little old, and it was just 3 or 4 years ago. And truth is, yep, that's the way they looked. Now, does that matter? That the website looks a little bit old versus, cutting edge, brand new by today's standards. I don't know.
Well,
I've got
maybe
shirts that still fit from college, and my wife says, no, you can't wear those. I'm like, it's not holes, it's not threadbare, it's fine. No, you're
not wrinkled,
Okay, wear that at home. You can wear
all
that
stuff comes back.
Yeah,
comes back. It's all.
I'm just waiting.
Yeah. Bell bottom jeans were back a couple years ago for but no, I mean that makes sense. I mean, and maybe you and I look at things through a different lens, but if I go on a website and it looks a little old or outdated, I mean, you might, and potentially wrongly assume that, that they're not up to par on the most current trends or whatever. So I could see.
Yeah, it's all about perception. A couple of years ago, and even now, when SSL certificates came out, right, which is making a website secure. When you go to a website today, HTTPS, right, means it's secure. Well, when Google first started to show that websites didn't have that extra security, people would think, well, I'm not selling anything. I'm not collecting financial information. Why do I need it? And at that point, it was really, well, think about what people are going to do. They're going to come to your website. It's going to say not secure. Does it matter that you're not selling things, that you're not collecting personal information? People see that and go, oh, let me get away from here.
Right. No, you're right. You got to, I would almost consider like basic blocking and tackling. Like you got to have those fundamentals. You got to make your site bulletproof. You got to make people feel secure. Okay, so I know we started a couple minutes late, but I can't believe how fast the time went with you. And I want to be cognizant because I know you're a busy person. So I do want to end on a final question with you, but I would love to have you back for another time later this year. Because again, I know we're going to have all of these, worse sessions. So I need you probably one more time to bring us back. But Paul, so in all seriousness, this has been great. What's your favorite piece of technology?
Oh, my favorite piece of technology. Are we talking hardware or talking software?
Favorite piece of technology. I'll tell. I could tell you mine first or later, but Could be software, hardware.
So you're not going to believe this one, but I'm going to go old school. Favorite piece of technology, fountain point pen and paper.
I love it.
I have a collection of fountain pens, and
Yeah.
I just love the way that they write.
Oh, I love it. I love it. All right. Did you ever read the and I don't know if this is like even fake at this point, but I always thought it was real. But the article that NASA spent like $2 million developing a pen that writes upside down. And,
Pressure for space and stuff.
yeah. A pencil.
Pencil.
Yeah. Right. It's like good thing they spent all that time and no, I love it. My favorite piece of technology has been the streaming of music. Because I love music and I feel like that's been something very accessible and it's cut down on a lot of waste, buying CDs and packaging and plastic.
So I did think of a specific streaming service when you first asked me that, because that's always one of the first things that get loaded when I start working.
Yeah.
Pull up a playlist depending on what I'm doing. And, my company is called Digital Maestro.
Right. So you got
it's
music.
all about music.
Yeah.
I used to have on that wall over, a couple thousand CDs.
Okay, nice.
Never thought, this is me, never thought, oh, streaming, that's going away. That's not going to work. Right.
Yeah, it's crazy. Now
who's going to want to just grab music when you can own it and have it wherever you go? Right. So this is going back a couple of years, obviously.
Yeah. Yep. It's wild. I couldn't tell you the last CD I bought. I think it was Genesis Greatest Hits.
That was a good one to buy at least.
Way back in the day. That was like my last one. But yes, again, I know you're busy. I really want to thank you for your time. Any closing thoughts you want to leave us with, or
just for websites and for SEO and just for life, enjoy what you're doing. Have fun with it. Even if you're banging your head against something, remember it's all about the journey and enjoy it.
I love that. Paul, you have great expertise. You built some great sites out there. You have a great business. Your ability to look at content and SEO and kind of bring it all together is commendable. So if anyone's listening and needs a website or knows of anyone that needs a website, start with Paul.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.